Okay. We are live on Facebook and let's see if this other one is going to work. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So happy you are here. Um, and we're live on YouTube. I figured it out. I can't believe it. Okay. Now let's get to today's special. So I told everybody that we were having a special guest today, and does anyone know who I was going to have? It's a little delayed. It's a little delayed. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, people are just now seeing you, Patrick. And I want to welcome you. If you guys don't know who this is Patrick Cooperman of Cooperman Frame Drums. And we've been friends for many years. And he is, behind all this madness with all these beautiful drums. And
I'm in front of it, actually.
oh, you're in front of it. So I thought it'd be really special to have you today, and we're gonna talk a little bit about your drums, and I know people have questions, and I'm gonna ask you some questions that I know that you get asked a lot, and then if you guys still have questions, you can you can post them on the Facebook page, and if you're watching on YouTube, I think you can also post on YouTube as well. I might not. Oh, the Facebook. You can post on YouTube, so I'll also check that. But if I happen to miss your questions, you can always reach out to me or Patrick. And Patrick actually is very good with answering questions on email. So, but
We'll see.
so tell us a little bit about Cooperman Drums. Did you start Cooperman Drums? I how did this madness all start?
It really is a family business with roots going really back to both of my grandparents, my father and my father's father and my father's mother and the whole. It's a family thing, and so it starts out in rudimental drumming, with my father being a rudimental drummer and making drum shells, and eventually becoming more and more aware over a period of time. World percussion drums, a baron drum in particular, so an Irish Celtic drum. And then in time, that evolved into a broader awareness of all the variety of world percussion drums. And so we have this two generations, at least, of people working on frame drums here at our shop.
Wow. Well, we're really lucky. I mean, if you guys don't know about Cooperman frame drums, they're like the fine wine, of wine. They're really amazing, and I've had some of their drums for years. They've rolled downstairs. They've been like, they've had cats sitting on them. They've had clothes in them, stuff in them. They last forever and they sound good, and they're really made with like they're handcrafted, which is really, really nice. A lot of times, a lot of the drums are made by factories, but each drum of yours is something I really like how you actually make each drum. It's like, it's not like this.
Yeah, the drums are made here in Vermont from logs to finished product. So we actually source the trees locally. Most of the cherry wood that's going into frame drum and ash wood that's going into frame drums is literally coming from the same town as the Millicent. That's Westminster, Vermont. And so we bring it all the way from trees on the landing, on the stump, all the way to the finished drum. So there are three people here working on drums. I don't know what constitutes a factory. Sometimes when it's noisy, it feels like a factory. But there are three people working closely on a finished drum. So.
Well, I just thought it would be really nice to interview you today. For those of you guys watching, I'm posting this also on YouTube. I've never done this before, so hi YouTube people. I've been doing these free trainings for the COVID in May, and I thought I would have Patrick on for this one. And for everyone watching on YouTube, on Facebook, it's so good to have you guys all here. And so can one of the questions I get asked all the time are the different types of heads. And I think that's also something that's really so special. It's not like you just make one drum. I mean, you probably wish you only made one drum. It would make life a lot easier, but you don't. You're very customized, and it's like you keep creating new things, which I love about you guys. And you have all different kinds of heads. So maybe I think our listeners would really like to know about the different types of heads and that you have, because
Yeah, all of the different models of drums are not simply to create variety in some vague way, like having a blue shirt versus a red shirt or a green shirt, whatever like that. Each model drum has a very nuanced presence and is designed in and are working closely with artists like yourself, Marla, to reflect a playing style. So some drums are meant for lap style, some for upright position. Some of them are shallow and want to sound bright and articulate, and some want to sound twangy, which
mm,
is odd, right? And some want to sound more muffled. And so a lot of variations in specifications go into creating each one of those nuanced sounds. And one of the main ones, as you've noticed, is the choice of drum heads. So we mostly run Remo synthetic heads on our drums. We also do calf and goat. I actually have a few samples, which is unusual to have both a calf and a goat skin head on the shelf here. I can show them to you if that helps. And then we run the Remo products. So Remo must make, I don't know, at least 60 variations on their synthetic head materials. And again, Remo has very carefully designed them to each one of those heads is designed and formulated specifically to create a particular sound. And so we use 4 variations of Remo products. And we see those 4 heads as feeding sort of a range of pitches and sound and tonal effects. So the brightest one is a Remo Weather King Clear.
can
The
you show
next
us
one,
that? Can you show us? Can you show us
sure, yeah,
that?
pick something out. Oh, here, I have
Isn't
a
this
Rick.
fun? Isn't this fun? We get to see all.
I have a
There.
Rick that doesn't have jingles on it yet. Here's a Rick. You can see the reflection. That's a Weather King Clear. It does. We want a really bright. We want a really bright, articulated sound on that. So that's why we use this particular head. Almost all Remo heads come in 3 gauges of thickness. So they come in diplomat, ambassador, and emperor weights. So Remo expressions, right? And they kind of reflect a mil thickness. So they go from 7.5 to 10 to 12 mil approximately, right? And so each one of those thicknesses affects the way the head responds. How tight can you get it? How much does it bounce? How much pitch blending can you get off of it? So Weather King Clear, again, is our brightest sounding head. Renaissance would be the next choice. So what do I have a Renaissance head here? So here's a 16-inch with a Renaissance head. So you see it's more opaque. The reflection here is not great on these drums, but that's an opaque sound. And that's really the workhorse of our line. So that's hopefully giving you a sort of mid-range, right? Mm-hmm. And then we use ebony suede, which is the darkest, literally, and in terms of appearance. So this is a Marla design model with ebony suede. And this is a Marla design, same size, everything about it is the same, except it has a Renaissance. I don't know if you can pick up that nuanced sound, but this is going to be brighter and more responsive. And so those are the 3 main heads: Weather King Clear, Remo Renaissance, and Remo Ebony Suede. And then we also use, although it's kind of specialized, we use a Remo product that's Weather King Clear bonded to a piece of cloth. So can you pick up that texture? And that is something that was developed during John Bergamo's time to create more pitch blending. It seems to work best on smaller diameters. And then just to show you how experimental it can be, and that Remo offers so many variations. We had a customer who desperately wanted a Remo skin deep on a Kanjira. So here's a Kanjira skin deep.
That's a South Indian drum, for those who don't know. That's a South Indian traditional drum. It's beautiful.
So this drum in comparison to the cloth mylar, rings more, and it has a bigger tonal range, but it's going to lack the same slap sound. So one thing to keep in mind is that there's not a magic bullet choice head. So everyone wants to say, what's the best head? As if it's one choice, but it's not. It's not as though, oh, well, the Renaissance is more expensive and it's a better head. That's simply not the case. Each head has its own place in the world, just like each person has their own.
So if you would suggest for like the more beginner drummers, you know, if they come to you and say, okay, what size, what head should I get on my drum, and what size drum should I get? What would you recommend? What
I
have you
recommend that they ask Marla.
No, but you, not.
No, it's been over the years, it's pretty clear that a 16-inch diameter is the mid-range drum that is a really great place to
Can you
start.
show us a 16-inch diameter, please, for those of us who.
Sure. There's several here, all with different heads and bearing edges. So keep in mind all these varieties. This is a 16-inch, kind of a standard Cooper Mintar, but it has a very deep. It has a little deeper shell than normal. But this is a 16 Cooper Mintar that's fairly basic. This is the same as the size of a 16 by 4. That's a fairly normal drum, but it's stained dark and has the ebony head on it. I think that the beginner drum would be a 16-inch in this dimension with this Renaissance head on it. So, yeah.
Do you know what I recommend my students?
Do I know?
Yeah, do you know what I say to them?
Well, I hope you tell them that you recommend Marla designs, and there are 3 different ones for very different reasons. So you have a 12-inch Marla, right? A purple haze, and I have one here. So this is very cool. It has this ebony suede head on it, right? It's a little deeper than normal, and it has this a very rolled bearing edge, right? There's a 14-inch and a 16-inch Marla design drum, and those are less radically different than the 12. And so a 14 or a 16 is a good choice for Marla students, I would say.
Good answer. I didn't tell them, those guys who know what I would say. We didn't talk about this beforehand. I recommend 16-inch because I think the 16-inch is a good size to start with that you can play in all the 3 styles, you know? And then what happens is you get these drum bugs, you get these bites, you get bit by the drum bug, and then all of a sudden you get, you know, you end up with 20 drums and you have.
Yeah, you really do need 20 drums. So it's not just salesmanship on my part. I appreciate that at the cost of a $300 drum that not everyone is going to be able to afford to own 4 or 5 different drums. But owning a drum in all of these pitch ranges is really going to expand your musical range. And if you begin with something, start with something that's affordable for you and fits into that mid-range, and then expand, because you can go all over the place and spend years doing this, as Marla will attest. And so guide you through that.
Can you talk a little bit about the different kinds of cutouts that you guys have on the drums? Because I know a lot of people get confused on the thumb holes and
the thumb hole is what we started out with with frame drums, because we really began imagining the frame drums always, hand drums always being played upright. And so this reflects the style. So the thumb hole is really nice for very amateurish drummers like me, because it feels very anchored. So I feel like I've got more control over the drum when I have it anchored on my thumb. I feel like I can do things and move around, and the drum is always where I think it's going to be, right? So thumb hole, right?
You feel the thumb hole is the most anchored way of holding the drum.
For me, I think it represents a certain shyness about how my comfort level with holding a drum. So I really am very much of a bad drummer and a newbie for my whole life. And so the thumb hole is a great anchor. And we know that Glenn Velez teaches with an arch grip, because Glenn is so comfortable with the drum and he never feels like he needs that anchored grip, right? But this gives Glenn freedom. So whereas I want to drop back to the thumb hole because it gives me a sense of security about the drum, Glenn wants the opposite of that. He wants to be free. He wants to be able to move and reposition his hand in any number of places along that group.
Really, sorry. It gives me a sense of. Okay. So you feel like that's the more experienced way is the cutout, right? You feel like that's the more.
I think so. And then ultimately there's this super hybrid.
What is that one?
What is that? It looks like an M, right? For Marla. It's something like this is intended to be a hybrid between that, what I call the mouse hole arch of the Velez drum and the thumb hole. So this one gives you the ability, let's see if I can do this, to put your hand and locate it along this angle so that you can be choked up very close with a lot of finger contact on the head, right? Or you can back down towards the bottom, and now you're really on the edge of the drum. So, and it's done like this M so that you can be ambidextrous. You can be left hand dominant or right hand dominant.
Right.
So that's that. And then the last grip is, well, they're very, let's see if I can get the light right. That's a notch grip.
Yeah,
right?
nice.
So this is a DAP, right? So we have a notch grip on that. And let's look at this one. We have a gentle arch grip on this. So compare this arch grip on a 2.5-inch deep drum to this, what I call the mouse hole arch on the 4.5-inch deep drum.
So when you look at some of the ancient drums, what were their cutouts like? Do you know what the ancient drums cutouts were like?
I don't. I think that in the images, you always see a person gripping especially when the women were drummers books, you would see women always holding the drum, and they are hiding the grip. So you can't tell whether they have a hole in them or not. So in some cases, I think from an etymological music point of view, the grip, the thumb holes is maybe a trick and maybe vestigial, because we know that like on a tambourine, on a concert tambourine, there's always a hole, but it's too small to be a thumb hole. And so it's actually a mounting hole, but everyone thinks it's a thumb hole. These kind of things can be really tricky when you look at instruments from the past. But what's a more common grip in old drums is something more like a Pandero grip, which I don't have one here. I simply don't have one. So, a very, an extended square shaped grip like the Marla one, but extended in square instead of on a check mark and arc.
Yeah, it's amazing all the different possibilities, and
yes. And one more thing, they can be modified to suit the drummer. So, we always hear a drummer, I have a small hand, and I really have a difficulty with my grip. We do drums for people who have arthritis in their hands. And so we've taken a drawing of their hand where say your knuckle is large because you've got rheumatoid arthritis or something like that. We can say oval that thumb hole so that it's more ergonomically comfortable for a drum or something like that. You can do that yourself as well. So all these things are important to how comfortable the drum is in your hands. You can imagine Marla's playing 2 hours on stage, and it's got to be comfortable, right?
Well, that's one of the things that you guys, makes you so special is how you help each and every person, and you do custom orders, which I think is really wonderful. Well, I didn't know that you did that about the grip. So, because I have a lot of people telling me that it hurts their hands, their thumbs. And so when people are feeling that, they could order a specific drum that has a deeper hole. Is that what you would create it as?
Typically elongated. So we make it, bigger on one side but we make it egg shaped, really, so that it fits this fatty part. This seems to be what people have most difficulty with is this part of their hand.
Yes.
And so that's what we've changed.
But also, you can hold a heavy drum. It's also how you hold it, right? Like if you have a relaxed approach to drumming, your hand shouldn't hurt, no matter what the grip is.
Yes, and the balance of the drum
balance of the drum
is really important. So you can have a very large diameter drum that's well balanced, and that's important. And we sometimes Marla and I talk about that as well, because there's some confusion about these two systems that we employ in our drums, which is putting what I call liner or a supportive inside the drum and mounting the tuning system in that liner, versus like the Marla drums, which don't have that liner, the tuning system is embedded in the shell. So the question is like, why are we doing that? Which one is better? And it's not that one is better than the other. To some extent, it's about the depth of the drum. So when we have 4 3/4 inch drum, and we've imagined that this has a goat skin on it, by the way, you can see. This is a goat skin bendir, a little bit odd, right? So this drum, because it's wide and heavy, but it's fairly small in diameter, we really wanted to lean forward. We want the drum, the drum to lean into the player, right? So this drum, I don't want it to hold it straight up and down, which puts pressure on my knuckle there. I really want it to lean forward so that it's my hand that's getting some of that gravity on it. In terms of the thinner Marla drum, it's shallower in depth. So when I hold it up here, I can lean forward with this and not need that extra forward weightedness of the liner. So we switch to this, which is through the shell. And all what we're doing is responding to how balanced is the drum in our hand, and with keeping in mind that we think the drum needs to be held slightly tilted forward. Marla can say whether that's accurate.
I totally agree. I 100% agree with that, because that's how you don't get carpal tunnel. If you're holding it this way, it's really yeah, for the upright for sure. While you have those drums there, can you just quickly talk about your tuning system? Because I get asked a lot about how do we tune the drums, and I also think this is a really special thing about the Cooperman drums is that you can tune them. You can't tune every frame drum, like the frame drums that were played thousands of years ago. You couldn't tune.
Well, you can hold them in front of a fire
Yes.
and something like that, but they go right back out of tune. And that's why over the course of years, even for a Cooperman, we've switched to all tunable drums. 90% are synthetic heads. Before that, we had that more non-tunable drums that had skin heads, and they were quite vexatious, right?
What is that word? Can we teach that word? Because I've never heard of vexatious.
Like you've been a vexing problem,
Okay.
Drives you nuts, right?
Okay. All right.
And so the tuning system is designed to allow you to compensate a little bit. So every diameter defines a pitch range. And then within that pitch range, we can go slightly up and slightly down. That doesn't mean that you can make a 16-inch drum operate in the same pitch range as a 20-inch drum. It's simply not going to happen. So within that range, the possible range of the drum, which I think is about 3 steps, you can tune up or tune down.
I think 2 steps, but that's okay.
What do you think? 2 steps?
Yeah, for sure.
It's ambitious to think of 3. That's fine.
That's
as far as I'm concerned, the less the better. The tuning system operates on screws, right, that push up and down on this floating bearing edge, right? As you turn clockwise, the screw pushes up and puts tension on the head. What you want to make sure for any kind of drum is that you have even tympanic tension. That is, the amount of tension is even all the way around. Otherwise, it's going to sound off to you. It's going to sound out of tune with itself. The tuning system will help you make those adjustments to get it into that place where it sounds good to you. It's very sensitive, and I'm sometimes very surprised by it, but you can make very small turns on a tuning wrench and affect the sound dramatically. So I always think of my tuning wrench as like, the hands of a clock. And I'm thinking, I'm going to tune it up a quarter of a turn is, 15 minutes on the clock. If you went around this drum and did 15 minutes on each tuning point,
oh boy,
you would hear a dramatic effect on the sound. 10 minutes will do it.
Yeah.
And then the other question that always comes up is, should I go back and forth across?
Yeah. What is the way to do it? What is the?
That's the smart way to do it, because it creates even tension, and you're always chasing that tympanic tension around the top of the drum. So the smart way is to go opposites. But I lose track. So if I do if I owned a drum for myself, I would mark it inside 1, 1, 2, 2, or A, and then go around, because I lose track. I start talking to Marla. I start thinking about something else because I'm bored, because I have a 20-inch drum and it has 15 tuning points on it. So what I do is I go around the drum sequentially but in very small units. So maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just go all the way around and then all the way around again. And the smaller the unit, the better.
But you know what I find with your drums is that if you keep your drums in tune, you don't have to tune them all the time, unless you have to change key because you're playing with somebody. But they really like to be in tune. So if they stay in tune, you don't have to sit there and tune them all the time. So, it's really, I think it's really fun to learn about tuning drums. It teaches you patience, it's because you have to sit there and really listen to the pitch, and there's not like with guitar players. I get so jealous of these guitar players who have this like thing, they tune to this machine and it's perfect. Like with the frame drums, we don't really have that. So it really develops your sense of ear and listening, and I think it's a good thing.
On our website, there's a link on our Cooperman.com. There's a link to tips and maintenance, and there's a great video with David Cooperman, who it takes about 12 minutes and he tunes up a drum. I think it's really worth everyone taking a look at that video because it kind of shows the process.
And can you quickly tell a couple more things, and then we will end this talk. So when somebody first gets your drum, what is the first thing they should do? Because this is something that a lot of people miss, and it messes up the tuning system of the drum for the rest of its life. So that's where you do the bearing edges and you push in the edges. You
do that. It should come out of the box. It should sound good. If it sounds choked, what you should do is
what does choked mean for those who people don't know? What is it?
So on every drum, whether it's a snare drum, a rock drum, a bass drum, a frame drum, every drum suffers from the same tuning problem that every roadie or drum tech will deal with, which is the head stuck to the shell, right? Mm-hmm. So all drum heads, whether they're synthetic or skin, have a tendency to just grip a little much around this margin of the head mount. Mm-hmm. And what happens is if one section is a little bit stuck and the rest of the head is floating properly, the drum will sound out of tune with itself. And no matter what you tune it, it's because it's stuck. So it's over tight in one little section. And so what you'll see techies do all the time is to hit the drums. And that's one way to try and release or make sure that the head is always floating. And so what I do, however, is I grip the drum on the back like this, and I put my hand here, and then I tighten up. You'll see my muscles flexing. I'm going all the way around the drum. I do it with both hands. I just go all the way around, and I listen to hear whether I hear a little crackling sound. If you hear that crackling sound, people are spooked. They think that the head is breaking. It's not. It's just releasing. It's freeing itself from the shell. And it's smart to do that all the time. This drum did not make any sounds. It's probably pretty stable, and the tuning system is floating exactly how it's supposed
to. Yeah, it's and you can't break the drums. When you do that, people like when they do that, they think they've broken the drum.
No, that doesn't happen. All right. I think there's a little video on that tips and maintenance part of our page where I show that. I call it setting the collar.
Yes.
Setting the collar on a drum. And there's a YouTube clip of me trying to demonstrate that process a little more detail. So check those out. It's a very common drum technique. It's nothing secret.
I want to ask one more question, and then we probably have time for just a couple of questions. If you want to just type them in the Facebook page. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can ask Patrick. You can email him at info@cooperman.com, because we won't have time to check the YouTube comments, but we will have time for a few Facebook comments. But one of the things I love so much about Cooperman drums is that you guys are always creating new drums. So you have your standard Cooperman drums, which I love the basic Cooperman drum. Like I think that's like one of my favorite drums. But then you're always working on new things. So can you share something that you're like working on, like a new drum that you're working on?
I just put up. Eric is experimenting these days with what I call TST, or thick shell tar drums. So
what's the lingo for that? TST,
thick shell tar. It's a very simple idea. So small diameter, so they're really portable. Something you can throw in your backpack, something you can throw in your suitcase. So we've made a variety of them. So
Wow.
this is a 12-inch diameter, 2.5-inch deep, with a Remo ebony suede head, and it's a bendir. So this is a pretty unusual drum in terms of, it's got a lot of buzz. And one of the things you see going on here is bendirs have always had 4 strands. This guy has 6 strands. So we've really elevated that buzzing idea. We've done this in a variety with different heads, So here's the same diameter and depth, but we experimented with mahogany shell, Remo Weatherkin clear head, right? So I don't know. This one is brighter, and because it's tight, the buzzing is not as strong. Right? And look at this. So these are just wacky experimental variants. This is a Cooperman Pandero with a ebony suede head. And this you might think is a Pandero because it's got the same jingle pattern that way, right? And I put Pandero jingles on this thing, but this is hardly a Pandero. So it's way too heavy. This is a walnut shell with a calfskin head on it and a Pandero jingle. So this is a tar drum that is pretending to be a Pandero or something like that. So those are experiments. And we're always experimenting to see whether a calfskin head, how does that compare to an ebony suede head? Can we mix the jingles around? I think that this skin deep on this Kanjira is a good example of an experiment. Do you have something else in mind?
That's really cool. I like these new drums. I didn't know you were working on them. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, so those are extensions and variations, and then there are always a few artist innovation ideas in the works. Shane Shanahan has a very clever new drum, hopefully coming out soon. That will have little clackers on them, and so it has a bunch of jingles for different positions and bendirs and clackers, which is the really new thing for us.
Clackers. I don't know what they are.
Would you like to see real quick? I think I can show you. Just wait 1 second.
Okay, and then I'm going to look for any questions here. And I just saw one.
So let's see. So this one is bugger because it really is very much a prototype. But what we have on here is a piece of wood.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So it's spring loaded so that you can use split hands on these 2 clackers while it has a jingle in the middle. So that's an experiment.
Wow. Very cool.
Yep.
We have a question from Kenton. He wants to know what's different about the Renaissance head on the DOF I'm getting soon from you.
The DOF. Oh, Kenton Seidel. Hey, we put a head that I didn't even talk about today. So very rarely, but only on DAFs, I'm using Remo timpani heads. And so the timpani head is manufactured, as far as I can understand, slightly differently than all the other Remo products. So they seem to have a much truer fundamental. And the Remo timpani heads in the Renaissance are just a little, I don't know, they're just a little different sounding. And they were originally identified to me by Human Formati, who was advising us on Persian instruments. And he said, oh, you got to try this timpani head. It turned out that the timpani head is literally 3 times as expensive as the non-timpani versions of those. So not only am I a little hesitant to introduce those on all of our drums, but they're hard to get and they're a little specialized and they sound really good on DAFs. So you've really got to, unfortunately, that's one of the things that's driving the cost of our DAFs. But that's what's going on Kenton's drum.
Beautiful. So Kitty asked, you make DOFs? And you do. And do you ship to Switzerland? Do you ship anywhere, right? You guys ship anywhere?
We'll ship anywhere. Right now, there's a lot of delays and complications with shipping, even within the United States. The whole pandemic issue is just complicating everyone's lives and customs. We ship all the time. We typically use US mail for international, but we can also use UPS. It adds a lot of cost to the drum. And there's also European costs have to include value-added tax that often shocks European customers.
Right. But just remember that if you do get a Cooperman drum, they last you forever. So it's not like you have to buy another one right away. You know, I really have had one of your drums for 20 years. I call it facelifts, you know, like basically what happens when you have a drum like I do for many years. It's like every 15 years, just like we need a facelift, although I haven't ever had one. We need to get one every 15 years. So you send your drum in and you just get a new head put on the drum, but the body stays the same. And I think that's pretty cool how you really get a drum that you can use forever, you know. I think so. So far, I haven't thrown out a Cooperman drum, or I can't seem to get myself to sell any of mine either.
Good.
Yeah. So, well, we're really happy to know that you're back in business, you know, that you guys are working during this time. That's wonderful that Vermont has these, you know, it's allowing you guys to do that. So you are making drums.
It's tricky. We have a very stringent policy as outlined by Vermont OSHA and by the Center for Disease Control. So we follow a rather rigorous thing where we don't work together very often at all. We try not to work together,
Mhm.
and wearing face masks, and we have sanitizers and this elaborate program. We take our temperatures all the time.
Oh,
So
wow.
the world has changed. That's okay.
But if I order a drum, will I be able to get a drum? That's all I really care about. I'm just kidding. No. But if
No,
people order a drum, will they
yeah,
be able to get a drum? Is it like a
yeah.
lag time now?
We're
Because
here. We're here all the time. We're here 5 days a week, and we're working together but apart. And drums are moving out pretty quickly. There are some supply chain difficulties. The reason that all these drums are here is that they're waiting to go out, but I don't have tuning wrenches in shop today. And so they were supposed to be here a week ago. They seem to be lost in UPS. So that's lost in UPS between Maine and Vermont, which is, like nowhere. So
ah,
is it difficult to get a drum in Switzerland? Yeah. Is it difficult to get a wrench from Maine to Vermont? Yeah.
wow. Well, we're really happy to know that you're making drums right now. That's really great. You know,
Thank
I'm in California and we're still in lockdown, you know, so you know.
Heart goes out to you.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, it's good that you guys are making drums for people, so you're helping the world. And so, for those of you guys who don't know, people ask for your website, so it's cooperman.com. And also, I am beginning next month. I open registration for my Frame Drum Academy online programs, and Cooperman is our sponsor. Thank you so much for being our sponsor for that. And so, if anybody decides to join the academy this year, it's wonderful programs. They're 4-month training programs, beginner, intermediate. They are our sponsors, and so you get a 10% discount off your drums. So, you know, if you're interested in joining the academy and interested in getting a drum, this is a great win-win situation. Do you actually have the titanium drum there at all that you can show people?
Oh, a tympanum drum.
Yeah.
No, I don't. We make them to order.
Ah, okay.
I
Right.
think has one.
Who does?
I think Kenton Seidel has one, doesn't he?
Ah, I don't know if he does. Well, so basically Cooperman sponsors this thing we do in my academy called the Share the Drum Challenge. And so one of the things I like to encourage my students to do is to share. You know, it's just like one thing to study something, but it's another thing to actually go out there and do it. And so I have this challenge where I invite people to make a video of themselves drumming. That's it. That's the challenge. And then everybody who submits a video, they enter a raffle. And the person who wins the raffle wins this beautiful Cooperman drum. And it's the titanium drum. I can never say the name of that right. Did I say it correctly?
Whatever. We call it tympanum drum.
Tympanum. And it's designed after the Greek, right?
Yeah, well, what we actually looked at was a Roman mosaic of a Greek, a god, a deity playing a drum. So it has those ancient roots. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. And for those of you guys, if I missed your questions, I apologize. And you can feel free to reach out to Cooperman by email or call if you have any questions. And I'm going to continue on these trainings. I've been doing these free trainings in May. This is our last one, and I'm going to continue on in June. So we will do that. We will meet next Monday at this time, 1 o'clock, for another training. And Patrick, I want to thank you so much for your time and for all you do to share the drums, these beautiful drums. Seriously, like there is such a difference in sound with these drums. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. And especially when they're tuned, when you play a perfectly tuned Cooperman drum, it's so nice. It's really, really, really nice. Oh, really, really quickly, one more thing: the care of the drums. Like, if I got a new Cooperman drum, like, what's the best way to take care of them? Can I leave it in the sun? Can I, put water on it? How do I clean it? Can I put,
You need just to be very comfortable with your drum. I mean, treat it with the normal respect that you're doing it. They're very durable. So they will hold up to being put in the sun or being in the cold or being in your car. But, they prefer not to be left alone and in the car. They prefer not to be dropped and all those kinds.
yeah,
But
they don't like the sun, they don't like the heat, but
you don't have to be over. I mean, the drum is going to be your friend. Live with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. One other thing I just wanted to share for those of you guys who don't know, I just released my debut album, and the album features all Cooperman frame drums. I think there's one track we didn't play a real Cooperman drum on, and um, and we made a video, and it's called The Rhythms of Toph Miriam, and it was released 2 weeks ago. The video was released on May 1st, and the album was released on May 15th. And I'm actually today, the video lives on YouTube, Rhythms of Toph Miriam, but I'm going to actually post it on Facebook today. I'm going to do this, like, I feel like people on Facebook should see it as well, instead of having to hunt on YouTube. So I'm going to do a premiere, actually, on my Marla Leigh music page, um, say in about 2:30. That's in about 45 minutes. So if you guys want to check that out, if you hadn't seen it, or if you've seen it before and you want to share it, I'm playing a lot of Cooperman drums in the video. And yeah, your drums are beautiful, and please keep making them. That's all I have to say. And again, if you guys have any questions that I did not answer, please contact Patrick personally through email, or you can call him. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Marla.
Yeah, and I really like this new. Really quickly, what is the name? Someone's asking the name of that Bendir drum, that new one, the new
The
Ben.
little one, the
Yeah, what's
little. They're on drums available for immediate shipment on our web store, but I call them TST, thick shell tar frame drums, and there's those two, maybe even three Bendirs are up there on the site for sale.
cool? And are those custom ordered ones? Someone's asking. Oh, those custom
They're
ordered.
experiments. No, so when we do an experimental drum like that, they go up onto that page. Again, it's called drums available for immediate shipment on our web store, and those are bargain price drums actually. So
Ah, wonderful.
they're up for a special price, which is $200, I think.
Wow, that's great. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.